Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is GOP strategist Gail Gitcho. Before we get started, I do want to note that she previously worked on Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. Gail, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Brittany. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, the fourth Republican presidential debate is Wednesday night, and I do just want to ask you point blank, how important is this debate?
I don't think that it's going to make much of a difference in these early states. And the reason that I say that is because the first three debates really haven't made much of a difference. So I don't think that this is going to make a lot of news enough to change the trajectory or where people feel that the races are going in the early states. And I'll also point out that this debate is in Alabama, and these candidates really want to be focused on Iowa and New Hampshire. And it's also on a platform that's lesser known. It's a brand new network, News Nation. And so they don't have as large or a sustained audience that some of the other debate media partners have had. So I don't believe that this is going to be a game changer. I don't think it's going to change the hearts and minds of a lot of voters out there that have already decided who their pick is. But it does give the candidates a chance to be together again. It is a smaller field, and it gives them a chance to maybe pick up a little bit of momentum, maybe raise a few dollars, or continue to try to differentiate themselves from the others on the stage. And I think having the smaller field will be helpful in that regard.
Like you said, the field on stage has whittled down to 4 contenders, and they are Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Chris Christie. So based on those 4 who will be on the stage, who do you think has the most to win and who has the most to lose?
Well, the way that I look at it is, what do they need to do? So when I look at those 4 candidates, there really are only 2 people that have a shot to get to the path to the nomination. I mean, this race has, most consultants, most pundits will say that this race is over, that something very seismic would have to happen in order for Donald Trump to not get the nomination. But there is a swath of voters, maybe 20 to 25%, of these never Trumpers that are looking for a Trump alternative. And so you have Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, who have shown themselves to be that Trump alternative, or at least the potential of it. And so what they have to do is talk to these voters that are never Trumpers and say, listen, I have the strength, I have the grit, I have the toughness to take the fight to the people that you don't like in the same way that Trump does, be effective at it, and win. And so that's what their mandate is. That's what they have to do at this debate. And not even just the debate tomorrow night, but I'm assuming that there's going to be some more debates ahead of Iowa, but on their campaign stops. Their campaign stops have to include the message that I can be that Trump alternative. And what these voters want to see is that they can be as tough, have the grit, take the fight to the people they don't like the liberals, the Democrats in Congress, Joe Biden, the squad, the media. And so that's really what the mandate for those 2 candidates specifically is.
Let's talk about those top 3 contenders. And I use top 3 pretty loosely because Trump is far and away the frontrunner. According to a Morning Consult poll, he is at 66, DeSantis is at 13, and Nikki Haley is at 10. So do you think a Trump GOP nomination is inevitable?
Well, not because of those numbers. I do, but let me just say that the way that I look at it is in these early state contests. So in Iowa, you have Trump that is, in some polls he's at 50%, but in most he's at 45. And so that's what I think that these candidates are looking at too. They look at him and he's not above 50 consistently in Iowa, and he's certainly not above 50 in New Hampshire consistently. So the way that these campaigns are looking at the race in those early states, which matter immensely, is to say there is an opportunity for a Trump alternative. And I think after tonight, and as we approach the holidays, there's going to be immense pressure, extraordinary pressure for additional candidates to be dropping out to try to consolidate that support. We've already seen that from Nikki Haley's campaign to Chris Christie's campaign. And I think, Brittany, one of the things that you're going to look for tomorrow night in the debate is for the never Trumper or the alternative to Trump mantle to be taken by either Nikki Haley or Chris Christie. because they're in New Hampshire specifically. That's what these voters that are open to the alternative are looking for.
I do want to talk about someone who won't be on the stage yet again, and that is Donald Trump. And I have a two-part question for you. One, does it help or hurt Donald Trump that he's not going to be there? And two, does it help or hurt the other candidates that he won't be on stage? Because we know he is a fierce debater. He has really landed some punches on candidates. I remember in 2016, he had some pretty lethal nicknames for people. So does this help or hurt the other contenders?
So there's nobody, I promise you this, there's nobody in Donald Trump's campaign that is saying, Mr. President, you need to be on that stage, because it would be ridiculous advice and they should be fired for it. And the reason I say that is because he's so far ahead in the national polls. There's so few undecided voters nationally and in these early state contests that having him be on the stage for 2 hours with 4 other people that hate him, that are trained to, that have made it their life's work to take him out in this political contest. And so it would be silly for him to say, "Oh yeah, let me get on that stage and have 4 people plus the moderators attack me for 2 hours and give it all kinds of oxygen for discussion within the political class." It would be extremely beneficial for candidates to be able to face him one-on-one. In fact, I think that's where the most difference could be had in the trajectory of the race, is if a candidate, let's say a Nikki Haley or a Donald Trump or Chris Christie, they had the chance to take him on one-on-one, because that's what they're there for. They are the challenger, and they have the questions to ask. They have the attacks already prepared. They feel that a one-on-one opportunity is their best opportunity to show the electorate that they can be the alternative.
Let's talk about some of those attacks, because some were prepared. Like one time, Governor Christie called Donald Trump Donald's duck. Others aren't so prepared, and I want to talk about those specifically. And I'm talking about the back and forth between sparring partners Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy. At one debate, Nikki Haley called Vivek Ramaswamy scum. At another point, she said, "I feel like a little dumber every time you speak," something to that effect. So do you think those attacks are effective at all?
So yes. In debate prep, when you're working with a candidate and you have these big debates coming up, you always want to have some kind of prepared retort that's clever, okay? And that usually works in the first few debates. We're now on the 4th debate, so it's going to be expected. But for the Donald Duck comment or the scum comment, I think some of those are probably prepared. But when Vivek went after Nikki's daughter, I don't think that was prepared. I think that was just a mother's reaction, because you could kind of see it in her face that was going to be a response, whether she was on the stage or she was just sitting across from him at a dinner table. But some of that is to be prepared in debate prep. Everybody has a debate prep book. Everybody has a coach. Everybody has hours of preparation that they're thinking about. What is my offense? What is my defense? How am I going to attack? So that's what these candidates have been working on for the last probably 12 months.
Gail, I feel really lucky that I get to pick your brain here, because you've been in the room prepping candidates. When you're in there doing that for hours and hours, what's the number one piece of advice you're giving them? What's the number one thing that they're practicing?
Always on offense. Every time we work with a candidate, it is always be on offense. There is no reason for anybody on that stage to spend a moment on defense. And if they are on defense, it's because they're unprepared. Every question should be anticipated. When you go into a debate prep room, and you're helping the candidate with debate prep, it is your job to think about what the moderators are going to ask and identify all of those questions, and then identify how are the other candidates going to answer those questions, but also where are you vulnerable on them. So you think about all of that inventory of information that is coming at you, both your offensive opportunities, but also what you're going to say in response to the defensive posture that you could be in when you're attacked by the other candidates. And so you spend a lot of time preparing those things. But the number one advice for anybody that's on that stage is to always be on offense.
Then To your point, then, who do you think has been the most prepared from the past three debates, now going into the fourth, and who has played offense the most?
Nikki Haley. There's no question. I mean, Nikki Haley went into this with really low expectations, even though she was, she was a governor of South Carolina, and she has all this international credibility, and having been the ambassador at the UN. She went in there with lower expectations because I think people didn't expect her to run, or they didn't expect her to get very far. But she exceeded those expectations so easily in the first debate, and that did her a lot of favors. And I've not seen her spend a second on defense. I've been really proud of her that even when she was getting the small ball attacks about the curtains in her office, or the spending of money in whatever office that they were attacking her on, she had responses to that. She was prepared. She said, I know they're going to come at me on this, and here's how I'm going to respond. She's also quick on her feet, so that benefits her too. So watching her be on offense has been really impressive. And I think the other candidates have spent just as much time, preparing for this because the stakes are so high. But Nikki in particular has been very impressive in how she's handled these debates and how they've really helped her get to where she is.
I've had post-debate recaps with another GOP strategist, and he's lamented that he doesn't believe any of the candidates on stage are particularly likable. And we all know the old adage, we want to vote for someone you could grab a beer with. So do you think it's important, A, to showcase your likability on stage, and B, what's the best way to do that?
You have to be liked. I mean, it is just so important to be liked. And it's really not rocket science to think, how would people like me? The people that are your potential voters, if you are one of the Trump alternatives, it's to be smart with your answers. It's to be concise. It's to be very clear. It's to smile. These are the things that come out in people's personality. So when a candidate comes off as unlikable, it's possibly because they're just not likable. It could be because they haven't thought about that part of the personality that the voter does attract themselves to as a piece of why they would consider voting for that person.
I know you said earlier that you don't think this debate or the past debates will really move the needle in any seismic way for any of these candidates, but do you think anything will between Wednesday's debate to the Iowa caucuses?
In order for there to be any significant shift quickly, it would have to be seismic within the next 4 weeks. But what would change is Nikki Haley coming in, let's say, second in Iowa. If Nikki Haley beats Ron DeSantis in Iowa, and then she moves into New Hampshire, and she's already strong in New Hampshire, then it's a game changer. Then she's able to really say, I am the Trump alternative. Then she goes into South Carolina, where President Trump still has a significant advantage over her polling wise, but she's still in the game, and she's in her home state, and that makes it real. At that opportunity, that's when she gets her opportunity to be one-on-one with Trump. And that's when I think Trump would engage. If he's faced with Nikki Haley as the quote unquote Trump alternative, that's when I think he would engage. He would be silly to engage at this point just because he's so far and away ahead of people. But if she does get second place in Iowa, and the candidates would face immense pressure to drop out after that, then she would move into New Hampshire in a really strong position. She's in a strong position in New Hampshire. She goes to South Carolina in a strong position. And that's when I think you would see President Trump taking notice, maybe getting on a debate stage with her, which gives her the opportunity to be one-on-one. And that puts him at the greatest vulnerable risk to be one-on-one with somebody who has really been coming for him for the last several months.
I know that's far into the future. Well, not that far, just a few months into the future. But what are you looking out for specifically Wednesday night on that debate stage? And what should we look out for as viewers, as Americans, as voters?
So the first three debates have largely been the same. And there's been a few issues that have popped up because they have, like the issue in Israel. I mean, everybody saw the attacks by Hamas unfold. And so that became a big, important issue that had been asked at the previous two debates. So that became a new issue. Now, you also have Ukraine, you also have abortion. And so What the moderators have to do, and I think what everybody should be watching for, is how they deal with the issues that are actually differentiators for the candidates. On most issues, the Republican Party and these candidates stand the same. Everybody wants lower taxes. Everybody wants less spending. But there are a few differentiators like foreign policy and abortion where the candidates really have the chance to set themselves apart. And they are apart because a lot of their positions do vary. I mean, from Nikki Haley to Vivek Ramaswamy on foreign policy is a huge gulf. And so what the moderators, I think, have to do is really get into the specifics. They can't allow these candidates to simply answer their questions the same way that they have in the previous debates, because then they'll give them the same talking points, the same debate prep book, the same slogans that they've seen previously. So I think what people should be watching for is how the moderators treat the issue sets that differentiate the candidates, and try to draw out how specifically would you deal with the situation in Israel. You're talking about changing Social Security or Medicare. Those are huge programs that matter to millions and millions of Americans. How exactly are you going to do it? And hold their feet to the fire on the solutions. Because if you don't hold their feet to the fire on the solutions, then you're just getting the same kind of, debate prep book talking points that you saw in the first three debates.
Gail, thank you so much for joining me, sharing your insights. I'm looking forward to viewing the debate, and I'm looking forward to having you back as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brittany. Have a great day.